Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode. I'm absolutely thrilled today to have with me Tonya Roberts. You are in for a real treat because we're going to explore the fractional COO and the concept she's put together around it that I think will help elevate literally any organization going forward. So, Latonya, with that introduction, first of all, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be
Could,
here.
could you tell us a little bit about your professional background?
Sure. So, about 20 years ago, I got into this world of consulting and I started doing strategic planning, process improvement, org transformation, performance management. And I noticed how these major transformations were impacting the people and saw that they weren't really taken care of. So, say your company rolls out a major IT transformation, well, the people have to use the technology. And so I decided I really wanted to make sure that people were set up for success. And I got deeper into the change management side, the learning and development and communications, and then eventually went into coaching. And then in 2020, I decided I think I want to go ahead and step out there on my own. And at the time, I was working for Deloitte. So I've been working for the big boys for about 15 years at that time. And I partnered with a couple other ladies to bring our talents together and go to market. And what I brought to the table was that the organization and the processes that the bigger companies use, and eventually became their chief of operations for that company. So I consulted and did operations work. And now I do that for small businesses.
So the year 2020, something reminds me that other than the founding of your organizations was a rather momentous year. What was it like taking that step in that year? And for the two people who don't know what year I'm referring to, it was the pandemic year where they shut the country down.
Yeah, it was crazy. I took my time. I made sure I did it strategically, right? My background strategic planning. I didn't take the leap all at once, but what I did do was I knew from my background that relationship building and partnership was a huge key to success for a lot of people. So that introduced the concept of partnerships. I also decided I wanted to lower my cost of living. At the time, I was in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, which is very expensive. And then I decided to move down to Atlanta, which at the time had a lower cost of living, not so much now. But I moved in a month and then worked with these two other ladies to build out this business. And we created $1 million business in a year. And then at that point, I decided it's time for me to go out and be a full entrepreneur. At the time, I was a corporate warrior before, but a full entrepreneur. And from there, my business just grew.
I've I'm an entrepreneur as well. My corporation started off law firms, then I went to the corporate world as a lawyer. And sometimes people in the corporate world or the large consulting firms or large law firms have difficulty as an entrepreneur. But you seem to have really flourished in that role. Would you maybe say a few words about what skills you had, which you think have really led you to making this transition to an entrepreneur?
I always tell people that when your money is funny, your decisions are funny too. So I put aside a nest egg, right? So I can make sure that the financial side bills are paid for. I don't have to worry about that so that I could really lean into the creativity and what it really took to grow a business. And from there, I leaned on my gifts, right? And I don't want to, and I work with my clients on this. You are not going to be a master at everything. So the women that I partnered with, they were strong in areas that I was not. What I could do was bring together the strategy, the processes, the operation side. And so I relied on my zone of genius, and I am a problem solver. I love solving problems, which is consulting was great for me, right? And that's how I grew up. My dad was like, "I'm not gonna solve it for you, but I'm gonna show you how to be a problem solver." And so I just did that. A new problem would come and I'd get really excited and I'd solve that problem. Then I'd move on to the next thing. And there was a lot of self-talk, a lot of private conversations like, okay, this isn't failure, this is a lesson learned, right? And what is that lesson and how can we maybe do things differently the next time? Because in entrepreneurship, it's like a roller coaster. There's a lot of ups, there's a lot of downs, and you become really resilient or you don't. And then you go back to a job, where it's safe and that stability. I learned to be very resilient and learn to, even if I had a bad day, to just, okay, feel your feelings for 20 minutes or an hour or a whole day and then pick yourself back up and get back to work.
I'm going to shout out to you living in the South, South for a few years because you said solving problems, just like a good Southerner, being a good Southerner myself.
Yeah.
But let's move directly to the fractional COO model. Could
Mhm.
you explain what that model is and how it differs from a full-time COO?
Yeah, most companies, they do have that person who is the visionary, the CEO, and they have the person that is the how. They're the operations person. And in a traditional business, that person is full time. Well, in the fractional model, it just means I'm a part time COO. And what that the benefit to that is, not every company needs a full time COO, right? But you could benefit from the expertise and the experience and the knowledge, and someone that can come in and lean their gifts to the company. And so that's what I do. So instead of working for one company, I work for several, and I still have management responsibilities. I still own a budget. I'm still doing all the things that I would do as a full time COO. I just do it on a part time basis.
How is or what are I and I really like where you started with the visionary CEO, the visionary founder. Many of those types of people, I'm gonna even call them creatives, and they may not be detail oriented.
Right.
And they budgeting and things like that may not be their strong suit.
Hmm.
How can having that fractional COO really help smaller companies and even startups? And is it too early to have a fractional COO?
No, I don't think it's too early to have a fractional COO. I think the sooner you can start out, the better, because that COO is going to be focused on the structure and your processes. So they're going to be documenting things along the way. Working with that visionary, that beautiful visionary that has all the ideas and does not care about the details behind it. I love them. So I'm working with one client now, and he's throwing out all these ideas, and I get to stay in my zone of genius, and I'm like, okay, let me ask you this question. What do you think about this? And I'm laying out the strategy for it, right? I'm laying out the, here's step A, here's step B, and kind of gauging whether or not he's receptive to it or not. And that helps them. They stay in their zone of genius. They can come up with these ideas, and I'm going to lay out the process. I'm going to make sure that the people are in place to make sure it happens. I'm going to document the process for them, help them come up with some of those key performance indicators so that they know whether they're on track or off track. And if they need to pivot, I'm going to look at the data, and I'm going to nerd out on all things operations while they stay in love with their business and continue to do what they love to do.
This year is the 100th anniversary of the novel, The Great Gatsby. And one of my most favorite visualizations of that novel is the eyes of Dr. TJ Meckelberg. And that's an optometrist who has an advertisement on the way from Long Island to Manhattan. And I use that visualization when I talk about the following. My wife is a process engineer, and she says you always have to have a second set of eyes on whatever the process is. Can that be true for your role as a fractional COO to put a second set of eyes, even maybe even a different set of eyes than a founder, a CEO, or other people you might work with in a small startup?
Yeah, I like that because I may miss something. The CEO may miss something, right? So if my favorite way to work with that CEO is, if we're developing a SOP, a standard operating procedure, or document a process, is tell me how you do this, and just have them walk through the process, and I document everything. Then what I would like to do is, the person who is responsible for completing that process, I want to then meet with them. Okay, the CEO thinks it's done this way. Tell me how you actually do your job. Because then I'm going to find out where are the things, and I'm a Lean Six Sigma black belt, which just basically means that I want to make sure that you're doing it as efficiently as possible. Right. So, how can we do it faster? How can we do it more effectively? Is there something that we're missing? What are some of the challenges along the way that may pop up, and how do we solve for those things? And I'm going to get that from the person, that second set of eyes that's actually doing the work. And then from there, we can really optimize that process. So if it's available, it's great. If not, then I'll work with the person that I have and try to make it the best process as possible.
Let me look at or ask you about business growth and the fractional COO. And what are some of the keys that you can bring, and maybe even some of the lessons that you developed over your professional career at a big
Mhm.
four that can translate into business growth for a small business?
Don't discount the power of your relationships, right? Whether they are a direct connect to the work that you want to do or they can connect you to someone else, make sure you continue to nurture those relationships. Be that servant leader and not think of it as only, what can you do for me, but what can you do for that person? Have a strategy. When you're a small business, you don't have the resources of the big business. So you can't take on as many risks or you can't spend as much time in the business development side and going for those blue ocean clients. So your relationships are going to be super important. Understand what is your probability to win that particular contract and then make sure that you're really documenting. And then the last thing that I like to do is when I am working with the client, this can be during a project when we've completed a major milestone, or it can be after we finish the project. I like to do a project debrief, and I use the red light, yellow light, green light model where we're talking about what do we need to stop doing, what do we need to continue doing, and what do we need to start doing. What were some of those lessons learned? How can we apply what went well on this project to other clients? What do we need to stop doing moving forward? And is this a client that we want to continue to build a relationship, or do we want to close that chapter? Because as you grow, you start to decide who is your true target audience. And when you find that person, then it's just, okay, who are the other people that operate like this or are similar to this person? And let's go find them and learn how to work with more of them.
I heard you mention the phrase resource constraint, and I wanted to use that to introduce our next
Mm,
topic, which is the role of AI with both your job as a fractional COO, but equally importantly for small businesses. You see
mhm,
companies can leverage AI as a tool, a very powerful tool
mm.
to expand their reach.
Yeah. So I think that AI is an extended member of your team. Right? The future team members are going to have people employees and you're going to have AI employees. And those AI employees can come in and they can do some of those repetitive tasks or they can jumpstart a task. And if you get really good and you create these AI agents, you can have them, you can be the trigger to something and they can complete the whole task, right? And so think about it in terms of how are you developing your content? You need to put the content out there. It's not always something that people enjoy doing, but you can start that process by building a GPT or a Claude project or some type of workflow that helps you start or complete build your content. Or maybe it's developing your proposals. I created a GPT that is trained on how to quickly generate proposals for me, where it looks at the transcript from a consultation call and it compares what we talked about and the problems and the issues that were discussed during that call, and it compares it to the services that I offer, and it'll give me a proposal. And then from there I can take what may have taken several hours or even a few days to, okay, now I have a really good draft, maybe it's 90% complete. Then I go through it and I just clean it up a little bit and I can get it out to my client quicker. So, thinking about what are some of those repetitive tasks that you do in your business and what tools such as AI can come in and make it easier, make maybe you're connecting different AI tools or you're using it to get your process started. It can save you a lot of time. It can help you leverage your human resources for those things that the AI can't do. That strategic thinking, that really those human connections with your clients that everyone is still going to want no matter what. Not everybody wants to talk to a chatbot, right? So I say embrace it.
Love it. Let me turn to the relationship between a CEO and a COO. And
Mm,
I'd like to explore that relationship. And then I want to, of course, add on the wrinkle that you bring, which is the fractional COO. How
mm,
do you navigate that relationship? And then In addition to that relationship, what about your relationship as a fractional COO with other permanent executives?
Mhm. So the relationship with the CEO and the COO, whether they are full time or they are fractional, is that is the CEO's right hand. They're the person that is meeting with them to help them get clear on what their strategy is. They are helping them figure out, how do you bring this strategy to life? How do we make sure we have the right people, have the right technology, the processes, the systems, the people in place in order to execute on that? And they're the one that is helping them to not only think about the current state of operations, but also plan for the future. So you're meeting with them regularly. And what I like to do with my CEOs is, we will have a workshop in the beginning, and I have a operational gold mine checklist that I take them through, and it's 8 parts of looking at your business model and trying to figure out, where are you strong, where are some opportunities for improvement, and what can we work on. And then we will use that as our game plan for the year or several years out. And then we'll also have quarterly business reviews where we're constantly checking in and identifying, are we on track? What's the latest thing that comes up? Do you want to build out any new services or programs? How are we hiring? How are we growing this business? So I'm constantly meeting with them. And then we have a weekly check in as well, to make sure that we're on track and what's going on. How I would work with the other executives in the organization is, I'm going to check in with them too, right? We're going to have our check in meetings with the entire C suite team, but then I'm also going to have a one on one, because that operations person, they need to have a relationship with that CIO and make sure that the technology is in place to do whatever needs to be done for the company. That CFO, they are closely connected in managing that budget, right? Because decisions around, how are we hiring new people? Are we getting contractors? Or are we bringing in employees? Are we acquiring other businesses? What are we purchasing? That CFO is managing that budget, but the operations person is helping to execute. So they need to be talking as well. And then with marketing, I'm helping out with the marketing and the sales too, because I'm dealing with the operations. So then, how do you help to market to the target audience? What are some of those insights that the team is getting that will impact the marketing or sales strategy? So there's constantly a relationship. There's a lot of communication that is involved with all of those key players in the organization.
You've developed something called the Operations Gold Mine Framework. Can you tell us a little about that?
Sure. So it is an 8 part process where I'm really looking at, what is your business growth model. So to make it simple, what are you selling? What products or services are you offering? How do you connect with your clients? How do you measure their performance? What is the role of your team members? How are you communicating? How are you building out the business? What are those tools and technology and systems that you're putting in place? And we go through an in-depth way of really unpacking what's behind the business that's helping it to be successful, and how do we make sure that we are strategically helping you to grow your business. And when you're ready to scale, how do we know when it's time to scale, right? Because you got your systems and your processes in place, you're able to get sustainable results, and now can pull fuel in that fire and help it grow out more, if that's what the CEO desires.
So, unfortunately, Latonia, we are near the end of our time for this episode. But before I leave, I wanted to ask you if our listeners wanted any more information on your consulting practice, perhaps to reach out directly to you or
Mhm.
find out any of your preferred social channels, what would be the best place or places for them to go?
Sure. I am on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. On LinkedIn, you can find me under my name, so Latanya Roberts. On Facebook and Instagram, it's under Coach Latanya Roberts. But I will say the best way is just go to my website, harmonyconsultinggroup.org. Again, that's harmonyconsultinggroup.org. And you can see everything that I'm working on, as well as get a link to my socials.
This has been a great talk. I have two metrics for successful podcast. Number one, how much did I learn? And number two, how much fun did I have? And you scored 11 on both. So I hope we can continue this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Compliance Podcast Network. Start your mornings with daily compliance news, quick, sharp updates on the top compliance and ethics stories in under 5 minutes every morning in Compliance Podcast Network. Because compliance never sleeps. Need practical advice fast? Check out Compliance Tip of the Day, one actionable idea to level up your program. Short and sweet, every day on Compliance Podcast Network. Got 10 minutes? We've got the week's top 10 stories. 10 for 10 brings you the big compliance headlines. Fast, fun, and focused. Every Saturday on Compliance Podcast Network. And don't miss the Sunday Book Review, where compliance meets culture through must-read books and big ideas every Sunday in Compliance Podcast Network. Whether you're in the office, on a walk, or commuting, stay smart, stay ethical, stay tuned. Only on the Compliance Podcast Network. Available wherever you listen to podcasts.